Hey guys, it's Greg from BitGoblin again, and it's been a while since I've done a video on game controllers, and honestly, I've kind of been putting this one off for a little while since I haven't really had inspiration for it till recently. So today we're going to be taking a look at the 8BitDo Pro 2 Bluetooth game controller, which at first glance to me seems to be like it wants to be a Switch controller clone physically, and also a do-it-all controller with support for the Switch, PC, Mac OS, and Android. So for $50, let's see if it was worth the purchase and is it any good to begin with.
You smell that? It smells like a bit goblin.
Let's start with the easy stuff. What's inside the box and what does it look like? Well, in the box, you obviously have your controller, a USB Type-C cable to charge a controller and connect it with if you don't want to do so wirelessly, and a manual that you'll likely want to keep around beside you during setup because this does have some important info like press start to turn on the controller and hold start for 3 seconds to turn it off. I personally would not have guessed that. As for the controller itself, I got myself the black controller, which in my opinion has a nice matte black finish, and the controller layout is similar to the Switch controllers. The main differences though being that the left analog stick and D-pad are swapped so that the analog sticks are symmetrical, and the home and star buttons are kind of outside the analog sticks lower on the controller. I actually kind of pointed that pretty closely. On the top, you have your bumpers and triggers as you'd expect, the USB-C port, and a Bluetooth pairing button. On the back, you've got your battery compartment, which for the record, I really love that it ships with a rechargeable battery. And you also have a couple paddles, and then this tiny little switch over here with the markings S, A, D, and X. This is actually one of the main selling points for this controller. The slider changes the mode that the controller operates in. Now, I believe this just changes how the controls are configured and how it registers on your PC, and you can use like switch mode, for example, if you wanted Steam to detect it as a Switch controller, or if you use X input, it's detected as an Xbox controller. Neat stuff. Setting up this controller is actually pretty simple. You first need to flip the switch on the back or bottom of the controller to the proper platform, the indicators for which you can find in the manual if you want to look them up. Then you turn your controller on and initiate pairing mode by pressing that little pairing button on the top. Next, you hop on over to Windows, go to your Bluetooth settings, click on Add Device, Bluetooth, select the device when it shows up, and you're good to go. For Linux, the process is basically the same. After you get in pairing mode, just head to Bluetooth settings, search for your device, and connect and pair to it. This example was shown on Linux Mint 20.2 with the Cinnamon desktop, so if you use another Linux distro, your settings menu might be slightly different, and feel free to ask me for help if you need it. I also feel like it's worth mentioning here that you can connect to your PC with the included USB-C cable if you don't have Bluetooth, or if you just simply prefer it that way. Just flip the switch as before and plug it in, and boom, roasted. Whichever of the 3 ways you connect to your computer, now you just need to make sure your games support Nintendo Switch controllers, since that is the driver this controller uses. For Steam games, it's as simple as popping into the settings menu, go into the controller tab, click on general configuration, and then checking the Nintendo controller option and click OK. Other games and launchers may or may not support this controller, so you'll need to do some research if it's supported. Now that that all is out of the way, let's get down to the nitty gritty and talk about my experience actually using the controller, since that's what really matters. And I have to say that overall, I actually kind of like the controller. The setup process was pretty seamless in that I didn't have to go through any fancy setup of the controller on neither Windows nor Linux. And this is big since most people really just want to quickly get up and go and not have to spend hours screwing around with device drivers. Once it was connected, I just had to do the usual process of making sure the correct controller configuration was selected in Steam, and I was off to the races. And I had no trouble with any games in my library. More or less, it just worked like I would expect any controller to work. As for the feel of the controller, the fit in my hands is kind of nice, since it doesn't feel like it's overly bulky or too slim to grip or anything, though sometimes with the joysticks, my thumbs do feel a little bit fatigued after a while. I do prefer that they are symmetrical. I'm just not sure if they're like too far in or something, but it's really only a small gripe, and it's not that often. The controls overall, though, feel very crisp to me, with the A, B, X, Y buttons and the D-pad standing out to me as noticeably less mushy feeling compared to the DualShock 4, which is my favorite if you didn't know. Now, this next bit's a little bit less about usability, but I do really like how they have not only a rechargeable battery, but a replaceable battery. This lets you not waste money and material on replacing disposable batteries, though I would kind of argue you should be buying rechargeable ones anyway. And even when this battery starts going bad, you can swap it out for a new one really easily, which is actually kind of a concern I have for my DualShock controllers, since I can't just quickly swap out the battery. I know it can be done if you're willing to opening up, but some people may not be willing to open up the whole controller and then replace the battery. The USB-C port is also really nice to see as well, since not only is it more durable than your old micro USB ports, but I love being able to just have one cable for charging most of my devices, or even just connecting to my PC. It's really convenient. That said, no product is ever perfect, and the bumpers, while they are nice and responsive, they just feel off to me. Maybe it's because of their slim profile, or they have a bit of a hinge action when you press them down instead of the whole button going down, but either way, your mileage may vary for that one. The start and select buttons are also like, what were they thinking? I can get them wanting to be in the center of the controller, so I can kinda sorta understand them being out of reach of my thumbs, but what are these rubber buttons? They just feel super gross and mushy, and I just really don't like them. There are some more things I would like to say, but to sum it all up, for $50 plus tax, was it worth the money? Well, I really like it, and in my opinion, it's definitely worth the purchase, especially if you either need a controller or just want something versatile. There are tons of things that 8BitDo do right on this controller, even small things like not only having a rechargeable battery, but also a replaceable one, to big things like being versatile for a lot of gaming platforms, though it doesn't support Xbox and PlayStation as far as I'm aware. And overall, it just feels like a decent controller, like it's well built, it's not like cheap, and doesn't feel like it's going to break or bend easily. And honestly, most if not all my gripes are really just personal preferences, so you may really like these things that I did not like about it. For myself, I'll be sticking with my trusty DualShock 4 controllers for most of my gaming, since I just really like them and they've served me very well for several years. This is a great controller, don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's like that much better than other controllers to warrant buying it if you've already got one that you're happy with. But I'll probably make this my new travel controller since it's versatile enough to play both games on my laptop, and if I ever need a controller to play games on someone else's Switch for whatever reason, I can do that with this controller. And I guess if I ever get into gaming on my phone, I'll be ready for that as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this one, and now I'm curious to know what your all thoughts are on this controller, so sound off in the comment section below to let me know. Go do all the usual like or dislike and subscribe stuff, and go join the BitGoblin Discord server if you want to join the community. As always, I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you in the next one.